Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my July update for my palette panning projects and goals for 2023. In these videos, I like to update you on my usage for my Pan That palette as well as any of the other palettes that I've used in the past month since the last update. Let's just jump right into it because these videos tend to get a little bit long. I have a lot of things to update you on and I'm excited to share my progress with you. As per usual, I will start with my Pan That palette, which as most of you will know is the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill Volume 1 palette. My Pan That palette is really just a 10 use goal on every shade in this palette, so I have been diligently working to try and hit 10 uses on every shade by the end of the year. But we've also had some surprise pans along the way, and I do have another pan to share with you today, which I'm very excited about. So I will move through and let you know what shades I used, how many times I used them since the last update, and if I met the goals that I set for myself in the last video. And then since the kind of monthly focus shade goals seem to be working okay for me, I didn't meet all my goals this month. I might have a few rolling over, but I'd also like to set some goals for the month of August. It blows my mind. I say this every month, but I cannot believe that we are in August and I'm feeling a bit of a crunch now getting to the end of the year. I know we still have a lot of year left, but there are some shades that I've only used 1 and 2 times in this palette and I really would like to get to 10 uses. So I'm gonna try, again, I say this every month, but I am gonna try and just ramp up my usage on this palette so that I feel like I'm in a good place moving into the second half of the year. So starting with the shade in Light, I used this one 4 times since the last update, for a total of 18 uses. So I have well exceeded my 10 use goal on this shade, but I have a feeling that this might turn into a shade that I want to try to hit pan on at some point in the future. So I'm just kind of using it every now and again to see if I can get a good dip going, to see if this might be a candidate for hitting pan at some point. I also used the shade Silk Cream 5 times since the last update for a total of 16 uses. Same thing here, I've exceeded my 10 use goal on this one, but I think it would be really cool to hit pan on this shade because it's one of my favorite shades in the palette. So I'm just kind of dipping into it every now and then to see if I can get a good dip going. The shade Faint, I can't remember if I set this goal in the last video or if it was just a goal that I had in my mind. I think I might have gotten a little bit confused on my light pink shades for my goals, but I did use the shade Faint an additional 13 times since the last update for a total of 24 uses so far. My goal obviously being to try and hit pan. I've had some luck with the shimmers, using them around 21 times to be able to hit pan, and Faint, it seems, is just going to take a little bit more love to be able to get pan, which is okay. But yeah, 24 uses and no pan in sight quite yet. I'm thinking I might be able to hit pan in another maybe like 5 to 7 uses. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I will have another pan to share with you in August. But I did use that one 13 times in the past month to try and get me to pan. I used the shade Sissy 5 times since the last update, and that brought me to my 10 use goal. So I've completed another shade, which makes me very happy. And then this is where I think I got a little bit confused because when I went back and looked at my notes, I had written down that I wanted to try and hit pan in the shade Little Lady. I think I had that mixed up in my head with the shade Faint. So I actually didn't use the shade Little Lady at all since the last update, even though I was thinking I might want to hit a pan in that one. I just had been working on the shade Faint instead. Then we have Creamsicle, which I'm proud to say I used 5 times since the last update, so I've gotten up to 7 uses on this shade. I would like to hit 10 uses on this one. I found a way to use it that makes it a lot easier and less intimidating, which is by mixing it with some of the more reddish tones to just create a warm brown crease slash transition shade. So hopefully I can get to 10 uses, no problem, for the next update. I've been mixing Creamsicle a lot with the shade Hunts, which I've used also 5 times since the last update for a total of 7 uses. So again, I would like to set the goal of hitting 10 uses on the shade Hunts. In my last video, I had set the goal of 10 uses on the shade SBN. I haven't quite hit that goal yet. I used this one 4 times since the last update for a total of 8 uses so far. So I'm not too far off. Again, that should be another one that I can hit the 10 use goal on before the next update. Just 2 more uses there and I will have hit my goal on that one. Then we have the shade Jax. I've used 3 times since the last update for a total of 7 uses. These shades that have like 7 uses on them, I would really just like to go ahead and hit the 10 use goal on so that I can move on and focus on some of the more quote-unquote challenging shades in the palette. I would just like to feel like I've completed the 10 uses on a larger portion of this palette. So Jax is another one that I would like to have done in the next update. Loyalty, I'm happy to say I used 2 times since the last update for a total of 4 uses so far. This is one that has been a little bit challenging for me. It's this corner of the palette that I talk about every single update that I struggle to use, so I was happy that I reached for this shade twice. I have been working on a Phytosurgence cream shadow in my Project 5 Uses, which is a lighter, more kind of lilac purple, and I felt like it's paired really well with this deeper purple in the outer kind of corner and crease for a nice purple eye look. So hopefully I can get some more uses on this shade using it that way. I believe I set a goal in the last video to use Twerk 1 time as well. I did not touch this shade since the last update, so again, I need a little extra motivation to reach for this corner of the palette. It's just a little bit tough for me when I am going into the office and not necessarily wanting to rock purples and blues and teals on the eyes. But you know, we're getting to that point in the year when I really need to ramp up my usage on these shades. So I'm gonna try and reach for Twerk at least 1 time before the next update as well. And then in the last update, I did mention that I really wanted to hit pan on Hustle. And I am proud to say that I did hit pan. So I used this one 4 additional times since the last update for a total of 16 uses, and I was able to hit pan on the 16th use. It's kind of a weird looking pan, but it is there, and I'm very proud of that pan because it only took me 16 uses. This is a really pretty wearable taupe shade that I've just been throwing all over the lid with some nice brown mattes in the crease. And it's been a really easy wearable everyday look, so I'm happy to have a pan in that one. Skipping over to Chip, I wanted to hit 10 uses on this shade, and I used it an additional 5 times since the last update, which brought me to the 10 use goal. So that's another shade that I've reached my 10 uses on. Pool Party and Jada, I used both of these shades 2 times since the last update for a total of 2 uses so far, which I'm actually really proud of. As I've said, this corner of the palette gives me some trouble, so using both of these shades twice in 1 month, I feel very happy about. Hopefully I can use them 2 more times in the month of August and get these uses both up to at least 4 by the time the next update rolls around. And then finally we have Central Park and Soda Pop. So my goal for Central Park was to hit the 10 uses, and I did complete that goal. I used this one 3 times since the last update for a total of 11 uses so far. Goal completed. And Soda Pop I used 3 times since the last update as well for a total of 6 uses. So goals for this palette for the next update, like I said, I have a few goals that are rolling over. I would really like to hit pan in the shade Faint because I've been working so hard on that shade and I don't think it's too far away. I think that's going to be my kind of top row focus for the next update, so I'm just going to leave the rest of them alone because I have completed my 10 use goal on every single shade on the top row, and so this is just sort of the bonus pan row for the time being. I would like to set a goal to hit my 10 uses on the shades Creamsicle and Hunts because those are 2 shades that I've been using together a lot. and they both have 7 uses on them, so it shouldn't be too hard to get to the 10 use goal for a couple more shades on the second row as well. My third row goals are going to remain pretty much the same as last time. I'd like to hit 10 uses on the shades SBN and Jax. They both have, well, SBN has 8 uses and Jax has 7. So they're both pretty close to 10 uses, and I'd like to just go ahead and knock a couple more shades out for the 10 use goal. And then I'd like to use each of the more colorful shades in this corner at least one time before the next update. So that's Royalty, Twerk, Pool Party, and Jada, so that I can keep slowly but steadily racking up the uses on these to get me to 10 uses. And I think that gives me plenty to work on. If I want a bonus goal, it would be to hit 10 uses on the shade Soda Pop on the bottom row, because I'm at 6 uses currently, and this is a shade that's pretty easy to incorporate into my day-to-day looks. But that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, including Soda Pop. I've got 10 focus shades, which is a lot for 1 month, but hopefully that will give me some direction for how to use this palette going into the month of August. And I hope to have at least one other pan to share with you, if not some more 10 use goal completed shades in the next update. Thanks for sticking with me on that Pan That Palette update. I know, I feel like those updates just get longer and longer every single month, but this is a huge palette, and someone should have warned me that picking a palette with this many shades was going to be a little bit of a pain to update. I find it difficult to even photograph this palette all in one. Like, trying to get the detail of how each pan is looking while also fitting the whole palette into a photo is hard. So yeah, in the future, I think my Pan That palettes need to be a tiny bit smaller than this one. But either way, I'm really excited about all the love that I've been able to show this palette in the first half of the year. And fingers crossed, we'll have some more good progress on this one by the end of 2023. So let's move now to my other palette panning project, which is No Palette Left Behind. If you are new to my channel, I'll have the intro to this project linked down below, but the basic premise is that I am trying to use each of the palettes in my collection 3 times by the end of the year, which doesn't sound like it would be that hard, but my palette collection keeps growing. I will probably be talking about some new palettes that I've acquired in a future video, and what I'm gonna plan to do with them in relation to this project. But yeah, I'll talk about all of that in an upcoming video, so make sure you're subscribed if you don't wanna miss those updates. But for now, I'm just gonna run through all of the palettes that I used in July and let you know if I've met my 3 use goal, if I've hit any pans, spoiler alert for my empties, declutters, and pans video. And as always, I will try and remember to include any looks from these palettes that I did since the last update so you can see how I use the palettes. So I used my Beauty Bay Wilderness palette 2 times in July. I've used this palette 7 total times in 2023. And if you've watched my Project 10 pan updates recently, you may know, but I did hit a pan in this palette. I hit pan in the shade Snow, which I was really excited about, and it did not take me many uses at all to hit this pan. I think it took me 7 uses and I hit pan on the 7th use, maybe even 6 uses. So the Beauty Bay pans proved to be pretty shallow, but I love this palette so much. I think I've talked about it in previous videos, but I really do love this palette. I was primarily just using this shade as my lid setting shade to try and hit a pan, but I find myself always coming back to this palette, especially when I want a green look. So who knows? I've hit my goal on this palette, but I have a feeling I'll be dipping back into this one before the year ends. So since I had so much success with my Beauty Bay Wilderness palette, I rolled in my Beauty Bay Love Notes palette. This might be a bit of a spoiler for my Project 10 pan, but I figured I would work on another Beauty Bay lid setting shade to see if I could hit pan. And I did. Again, it took me 7 uses. I think that's correct. My spreadsheet might be slightly off there, but I have down that it took me 7 uses to hit pan on the shade Cotton, which means I used this palette a total of 7 times in the month of July, for a total of 10 uses in 2023. Again, most of those uses were just for the lid setting shade in here, but it still counts. And yeah, I have well exceeded my 3-use goal on this one as well. Since I've already spoiled my Project 10 pan update, I might as well do another spoiler for that video as well, which is that I have started to work on my Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette and the lid setting shade in here. I started to think, okay, these Beauty Bay shades are too easy to hit pan on. Let me try something a little bit more challenging. So I've been working on the shade Momentum in this palette. Obviously, I haven't updated that in my Project 10 pan video yet because I haven't filmed it yet, but I've only used this one time so far. But I figured I would tell you about it anyway because technically the first use was in July. So for watching this video, you have been rewarded with a little spoiler for my Project 10 pan. I used my Natasha Denona Mini Star palette once since the last update, which brings me to my 3-use goal. So I'm happy to have another palette that I've actually hit my goal on. I also used my BH Cosmetics Amore and Amalfi palette one time in July, which also brought me to my 3-use goal, so another palette that I've hit 3 uses on. I also used my BH Cosmetics Summer and Saint Tropez palette, but I only used this one once since the last update, and it only has a total of 1 uses on it so far, so need a few more uses on this one. I dipped into my Glamlite Icy Cherry palette once in July, so I've got a total of 2 uses on this palette. I used this for my Barbie look that I wore to go see the Barbie movie. I used the really hot pink shade in the top right-hand corner, and I think I filmed that for TikTok. So if you're not following me on TikTok, I'll have it linked below. I always have it linked below, and you can go check out the look that I did. I really loved the look. It was super fun and really enjoyed the movie as well. Did travel this month. I went to Disney World, and if you are not following me on Instagram, you may not have known that I actually got engaged while in Disney World. My boyfriend, now fiance, and I did go to Disney World, and I packed my favorite travel eyeshadow palette, which is the e.l.f. Love You a Latte palette. I didn't actually keep a count of how many times I used this palette, but conservatively, I would say I used it 4 times on vacation, which brings me to a total of 13 total uses on this palette. Obviously, this one is very well loved, and I just love how tiny it is, and it has everything I need for a really easy neutral look for when I'm traveling. The next 3 you will know about if you watched my last video. I used the Michaela Glamlite Pot 2 palette, the Glamlite and Michaela 10 pan palette, and the Glamlite Scooby-Doo Rutro Raggy palette, all one time in July, and I used them all in the same video, which I will have linked in the description box for you, where I did a look with each of these palettes. So you should go check that out if you haven't already. So I've got a total of 1 uses on each of these. And then again, from a previous upload, I used the 2 palettes that I purchased while I was in the UK earlier in the summer, the XX Revolution Exposed Quad and the Lisa Eldridge Myth palette. I used both of those one time, and they both only have 1 use on them so far this year. I'll have that video linked for you in the description as well. Ipsy has added me to their creator PR list program. So in the Ipsy for July, I received the Natasha Denona Fez palette, which is a beautiful palette, and I've used this one time so far, so it's only got 1 use on it. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing some of the Ipsy BoxyCharm. Ipsy and BoxyCharm are now the same company. It's a little bit confusing, but let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that content on my YouTube channel. I've been posting about it primarily on my Instagram, but would love to incorporate some of those products into a video on this channel if anyone would be interested. And the last palette that I used in the month of July was another gifted palette from Hamish. I've worked with them on Instagram a couple of times and posted content in exchange for them letting me pick out some products from their site. And I hadn't tried any of their eyeshadows yet. So I picked out the Dialism eye palette in the shade Nudie Coral and really enjoyed using this. So I used this 3 times in July for a total of 3 times. So I've already hit my 3 use goal on this one. This is another one I haven't used on my YouTube channel yet, but I do have an Instagram reel showing a look that I did with this palette, which ended up being a really pretty neutral glam kind of look. And that is everything. That is all of my eyeshadow palette updates for the month of July. Whew, I feel like we covered a lot in this video. I always end up using more palettes than I think I did month to month, especially in months where I'm traveling. But hopefully this was interesting to some of you to see what palettes I've been dipping into. Let me know what palettes you've been using over the past month or so, any favorites, any new additions to your collection. Obviously, I have a thing for eyeshadow palettes, so I would love to know what some of your favorites are. Thank you so much for watching this video today. My next video should be up in the next few days. Thanks for bearing with me while I was on vacation and celebrating my engagement. Before you go, please give the video a like if you liked it, and if you would like to see more content from me, more updates and more uploads, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It would mean the world to me. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Bye!